Hi, I'm Patrick Schneider, and this is my Humanities POL. I want to take you chronologically through my project so that I can showcase how my thoughts around my project changed throughout the year. My initial project was based around the idea of expanding accessibility to music education. My project last year was based around music, and I wanted to stick with that theme, just less in a creative aspect. So my project was to collect and donate instruments to underprivileged children in Morristown. This would involve raising money and buying instruments. They wouldn't be unbelievably expensive, but instruments that people could get started with music. And then also to start a buddy program where a high school student would teach a instrument to some of these children. Going into the planning stages, I recognized that this was an ambitious project, so I wanted to spend a lot of time planning it out before I got started. So I emailed a lot of local people who could help me, from Deidre's house to the neighborhood house, and a lot of teachers at our school. And I asked music teachers for advice on musical instruments and teaching methods, which would be applicable later on in the buddy program. I also wanted, because it was around Christmas, I wanted to use Christmas to basically guilt trip people into donating. And especially in the beginning, I wasn't too worried about the buddy program. My main concern early on was getting the instruments to the kids. Almost immediately into the execution portion of my project, I realized nobody was responding to my emails except for the teachers, so anybody from Deidre's house or the neighborhood house was not responding, and I really was just asking for advice, not even contacts. I also realized there was logistical problems for fundraising. It was going to be more work than I bargained for, and the administration would be far more involved in it than I was thinking they would need to be. And I ended up developing an I'm just a kid mindset, where I felt because I was a kid, doing anything extraordinary or reaching out to adults was impossible and they didn't owe me anything. In January, I came across an ad for a company called Power Changes Lives, which was running an almost identical program where they were donating instruments to underprivileged children across the country, and then having volunteers teach lessons virtually once a week in classes of 6 kids. This ended up being less work for me, but in the end, I felt less connected to it because I was doing less work. I was really just teaching. But it was really almost identical to what I was trying to do. It was donating instruments and getting more kids involved in an otherwise difficult to get into hobby. And I ended up getting 2 articles about me written in the patch. Currently, I'm still working with this company, but I'm starting to realize problems with the organization and how it's run. It's still very clearly in its infancy, and the boss does not play any instruments, so she can't really relate to the problems that the teachers are having in terms of large classes being taught virtually is not a great environment to be teaching new music students. The class sizes are way too large, and the virtual environment does not help at all. And I've had numerous situations with students with learning disabilities having to quit their class, not because of any fault of mine, but because it really just was not helping the students. Let's take a look at some of the outcomes and the products of my project. Some of the products, and most of them are not tangible, are students have accomplished a lot of growth. I feel like, honestly, the students have learned more than I feel like I would have as a student. I have 2 articles written about me in local papers, both of which I will link at the end of the presentation. Increased patient when dealing with a boss. I really did have to learn how to cooperate with somebody giving me their opinion, and most of the time more than their opinion, demanding things that I found blatantly stupid. And an increased knowledge of working over Zoom. As a student, I really haven't had to engage with teaching or running a Zoom call, so it was beneficial to learn how to work with people in more stressful environments. Here's just a screenshot of both of the articles. Both of them actually, funny enough, lied about my age, my grade, and how long I've been playing piano. According to the articles, I'm an 18-year-old senior who's been playing piano for 10 years, when I'm a 17-year-old junior who's been playing piano for 5 years, so I just found that really funny, and I'd laugh about that kind of often. Looking back at some of my earlier journals, I found a brief paragraph that was just talking about what I hoped to get out of my project and what I hoped to learn. And it really came down to how to cold call people. That was something I was really nervous about in the beginning. Organizing logistically complex campaigns and how to teach virtually. That was something I was curious about in the beginning of the year. And I did end up learning how to teach virtually. That was something that I definitely got out of this, how to be more patient and how to run a virtual environment. I also learned how to keep my eyes open for new opportunities. This was very easily something I could have overlooked if I had not been on patch. And then finally, to just double check what I'm getting myself into, I don't think if I knew how much work this is, that I would be as eager to go into it, or I would be going into it with quite the same mindset. So I think next time that I do join a program like this, I will want to be more cognizant of the work that will have to go into it. And lastly, I just want to talk about some of my big doubts throughout the whole process. A lot of my journals talk about these main different subjects. First off, I mentioned this earlier in my project, I'm just a kid. The idea that because I'm just a 17-year-old kid, that adults don't owe me anything, and that it's almost acceptable for an adult not to respond to my emails. The second idea was, where do I go from here? I found that a lot of my journals touched on this, not really knowing who I should email or what I should do about not being emailed back. And this, I think, really led to almost laziness because I was not sure what to do next, so I just kind of froze. The third idea is, does joining a program make my work less valuable or less commendable? While I did not go into this project at all looking for praise or articles or anything like that, I was concerned that because I was joining a program that I would have absolutely nothing to do with it, and that in and of itself would make me personally kind of upset. But talking with Sophia Licardi, who also had to join a program, I realized that as long as my goal was being met, I was perfectly content with what was happening. I was also kind of worried at one point because my parents put the articles on the fridge that having a tangible, pat on the back would change my motives and change my mindset around why I was doing this, from genuinely wanting to help out in the community to wanting the praise. But I realized Mr. Mann and I talked about it, and it really ended up not changing anything whatsoever. They sat on the fridge for a week. I didn't even look at them, and then they got taken down, and I have not thought about them until this presentation. In a similar regard, there is a stipend that I will supposedly be getting, and I was worried that getting that stipend would become the goal instead of, again, helping the community. But really, I'm not even sure if the stipend exists or if that was just a rumored thing that my boss was trying to achieve for us. And I, again, have not thought about it since.